Cross-examination of Senzo Meyiwa's childhood friend, Mthokozisi Thwala, continues this morning. Thwala is one of the people present in the house when the former Bafana Bafana captain was shot and killed back in 2014. Now, just yesterday, he had detailed Meyiwa's last moments in hospital and even further described what he saw on that fateful night. So today, the defense will then look to pick holes in his testimony. But our senior reporter, eNCA Silindelo Masikane, is live in court this morning. He joins me now. Looking at what happened yesterday, but looking forward to what is expected today. Slee, a very warm good morning to you, colleague. Let's perhaps go back to what we have heard from Mthokozisi Thwala so far.
I think you've wrapped it up quite nicely there, Dumelo, in terms of what we've heard from Mthokozisi Thwala, who has begun his evidence-in-chief, detailing and giving the court what he remembers about what happened 8 years ago on that fateful evening. And of course, we know that Mthokozisi Thwala is one of Senzo Meyiwa's childhood friends, and he's already begun telling the court in terms of the details of what he saw transpiring. And I think what's going to be interesting in terms of his cross-examination is what the defense will be able to unpack in terms of the differences or inconsistencies in his testimony. We also saw him getting a little bit emotional during court proceedings where he alleges he was assaulted and tortured by police officers. Now, we are seeing that there is some movement inside the courtroom. In fact, we do see that accused number one is inside the courtroom now. But before we bring in some legal analysis, Dumelo, I just want us to take us back to that testimony. Let's just take a listen to what some of Mthokozisi Thwala had to say yesterday during his evidence-in-chief.
Njengoba ngishilo ukuthi isikhafu sasi between uSenzo nalo muntu ophethe isibhamu.
As I've already said that the scuffle was between Senzo and the one with the firearm.
And then nalo wesibili komuntu engangisenimnothisile no Tumelo ngikhumbula ukuthi omakazikheli bathatha ama crushes, which was ama crushes kaTumelo, beshaya bezama ukushaya nabo labantu laba babela ngaphambi ngoba bonke babela ngaphambi kwami ngoba u6 if I'm not mistaken.
And that is in the scuffle was between Senzo and this person with the firearm, as well as now with Tumelo, as well as the second suspect. What I also do remember is that Kelly's mother, they took Tumelo's crutches and assaulted or tried to assault the people, because all 6 people that I've just mentioned were right in front of me.
So that's just some of what we heard yesterday from Mthokozisi Thwala. But to unpack what we can expect today, I am joined by legal expert from the UJ Law Clinic, that is Mr. Alton Hart. Thank you so much once more for your time this morning. Mr. Hart, let's just unpack how important or how crucial it is for the state's witnesses to have their testimonies corroborate each other. How difficult or how easy is it for the defense to poke holes if these testimonies corroborate or not?
Indeed, if one looks at the witnesses and one looks at the witnesses, specifically the ones that was in the house, one needs to check, do they line up? They don't need to line up 100% as to what transpired, because different individuals view things differently. So they don't need to be 100% the same as the other one, because that might also come across as being sort of half a coached witness, and that you've sort of have aligned your story because you heard the other one's witness, because we know most of the proceedings is televised. So witnesses, if they really want to sort of align their story, they can go and listen to the other testimonies of other people. One needs to just check now on the trial that was declared a nullity back then. You as an analyst would sit and look at what did the state witness testify on the first occasion, in this instance Mthokozisi Thwala, and what is he testifying now, and you will check between those two. Is he now adjusting his story so it lines up with what Zandile Khumalo testified as a state witness already, because we have then Zandile Khumalo and then we had the 2 forensic experts that actually, or the forensic witnesses that came. So he needs to sort of be close to what Zandile Khumalo said, as well as Ntabiseng Makete and also Ngashe that testified already. He doesn't need to be exact, but I think the defense will look for the discrepancies that might be in the testimonies as to what they saw, what they didn't see, because certain versions will be put to them that nobody saw, and the guy was parked in front of the gate, that they never saw somebody running out, if he's going to say there was intruders, and then they run. Because I could already hear that he's testifying that there was a scuffle between Senzo and the guy that had the gun. So that will be tested. It will be thoroughly tested by the defense lawyers to make sure that they say that there was, and their version would be there was no intruders, and also that the identity of the accused or the intruders is not clear at this point in time.
Just to pick up on that, you mentioned how we have this trial being televised, and there was an order that the evidence, the photographs, the exhibits that are being shown in court, that they are not photographed or filmed. Perhaps is that why it's important not to show these being broadcast, because there is, of course, a huge possibility that many of the witnesses that we're going to see here are actually following proceedings.
No, that's indeed, and because this case is got this big public interest, and as much as you don't want to hear, you will hear people talk in coffee shops about the case. You'll hear people in a taxi talk about the case, and you cannot sort of half say, I'm going to blank myself out, because the witnesses otherwise will say that the witnesses needs to be in a room where they are locked up, excluded from the world, so that they don't hear. And that would be the ideal situation, so that you know when a witness testifies, he has never heard anything about the case, he has not seen anything about the case. And I think that's why they now tend to, when they beam stuff on the screens in court, we cannot see it looking from the outside on the television set, so that we don't know. So that sort of half give some sort of legitimacy to the process, that the witness can say, yes, I heard they talked about a photo, it's photo 49 or page 49, but I don't know the photo that was shown. So you cannot really, so that makes it a little bit difficult for the witnesses to align, but still it gives them some sort of an idea as to the type of questions that might be coming their way and preparing them. So that is also what we need to be cautious of.
Lastly then, Mr. Hart, talk to me about how difficult or how easy it is for the defense to throw out some of the forensic evidence that we've seen being put before the court, in particular that cell phone data.
The cell phone data is of technical nature, and if you can't bring another expert to come and say that the conclusions that Sergeant Mabasa and Colonel Steyn draw from that cell phone data that they analyzed, processed and preserved, that there's not a different conclusion that can be drawn from that, it becomes difficult. Then the court, on circumstances, the court will more tend to lean to the evidence that they will give. I would think that it would be prudent of the defense to come and say, they just bring somebody, and it will cost them a little bit of money to come and say, but that is not the only inference. Yes, there's links. You can't prove the content, so that might work in the favor of the accused person.
I think we've lost Mr. Hart there. We're just having some technical difficulties, but I think we get the gist of what we can expect today, Dumelo. We also just unpacking what we can see the defense trying to do in terms of throwing out some of the evidence that's been brought before the court by the state. But of course, court proceedings starting at 10 a.m. this morning. We will be bringing you those proceedings live. And of course, we are expecting cross-examination to begin.
For this update, and we definitely have seen how the defense go when it's time to poke those holes, quite thorough and detailed in terms of seeing if there are any discrepancies or contrasting testimonies given by the witnesses. So we'll be sure to take you live to court as it begins. That was my colleague, senior reporter eNCA Silindelo Masikane.